Master Your Life with Kate McKay. I am so excited that you're joining me today. I am looking forward to introducing my guest, Phil Dunlap. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to this.
It's going to be awesome. So just a little bit about Phil Dunlap. He's a lifelong vegan athlete and former fighter, a veteran of 119 professional fights, and he continues to compete in submission grappling and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He has overcome adversity to continue competing, managing to balance running a finance business, family, teaching, along with his athletic career. Right on. So let's get after it. Phil, what was your first fight? Like, when did you know that this was something that looking back at you as a child, that I know you speak of it differently than just fighting, but where did that aggressive spirit, where was it from?
I grew up in the martial arts. My grandfather, my grandmother's actually Burmese, and my grandfather had lived in Burma prior to and during World War II, and he learned the Burmese martial arts over there. So I grew up doing the Burmese martial art, and when I was growing up, it was expected of me that I was going to fight. So at 15, I went to Burma, and I had my first professional fight. I fought all over the world. I won titles. I won three weight class titles in Burma, a stadium championship in Thailand. I fought in Laos, Cambodia, Japan, China. I fought in the United States in mixed martial arts. And the idea is, it was just one of those things. It was almost expected. And I'll be honest with you, by the time I was a teenager, it was part of the fabric of who I was as a person. I trained and I wanted.
Oh, that's crazy. So did you come out, would your mom describe you as someone that was sort of born into the work? Because not everybody, it's like, oh no, your father's a doctor, you have to become a doctor. I mean, to be in martial arts is absolutely I think it's the grittiest sport out there. And also just by the sheer fact of how you always, when you're competing, you always have to be close to ready. It's like no other sport. You don't have an off season, honestly. So
I'll start at the start of the question. Anybody who knew me as a kid would say, "Oh yeah, that was what he was going to do." Unfortunately, it came from a very, very strange upbringing. My parents really weren't in my life that much, and my grandfather was the formative person in my life. And it's kind of like, so anybody that knew me kind of knew I was making a beeline to some sort of combat sport. And it's kind of like, you brought up an excellent example of, it's extremely gritty, because I always tell people, and I always say it's a metaphor for life, because the lessons we learn in training, if we apply what makes us successful as an athlete to our regular life, we can duplicate that success. I'm a big one on anything you can do in one endeavor. If you look at what it took to get you there, you can replicate it in another. And I always tell people, it's one of those things, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That way, if you're even for like a professional fighter, you can maximize your, let's say, purse simply by being able to take that last minute call on a Tuesday for a Saturday fight. Because then you can, and I hate to phrase it this way, but it's like anything in life is a negotiation. Okay, when you're negotiating with a promoter who is a big ticket seller, okay, and he can't afford to lose the fight, you'll get a lot more money out of it than if you're 6 weeks out. So it's one of those things where I always tell people, the life of a fighter, I get a kick out of kids come in all the time, I want to be a fighter. My first question is why? Okay, I basically am what you might call an old warhorse. I need shoulder replacement. I need knee reconstruction. My ankle needs an operation. And I've got CTE. I fought bare knuckles, so I took a lot of blows to the head. I get spacey at night. There's a toll we pay. Now, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't trade my life for anything. Okay, so whatever toll I'm paying, I'm more than happy to pay. But when somebody walks in and says, I want to be a fighter, fighting is a life of denial. Okay, first of all, I say the first rule of combat sports, and if you apply this to life, you'll be successful, is that it's basically the art of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is, If you've got a 280-pound man sitting on your chest and you're trying to get him off and he's trying to punch you and you're exhausted, you're fighting with discomfort more than anything else. Okay. If you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, you can accomplish so much more than if you panic the minute you get uncomfortable. So I try to tell people not only is the training, which is rough, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. You got to eat right. If you don't eat right, you're not going to perform properly. Your buddies are going out on a Saturday night because they want to have, they want to drink, they want to party, they want to have fun. Okay, you can't. You got to go train. You got a fight coming up. You got to make weight. So in other words, like people think it's just like two ring card girls in the center of the ring and a championship belt, but it's not. It's a life of denial.
That's totally true. I'm getting ready to compete myself. I mean, I've been competing in bikini since many years, since I was
very cool.
Yeah, since I was 43. But the thing is that I choose to compete because it's the only thing that if I set a date that it requires me to let everything fall away and have this incredible hyper focus, that is the time I get the most work done in my life, creatively and productively. And I'm telling you, it is so much suffering and so much denial. I am not going to lie to you. And I think that people don't, when they hear that, we're like, I don't want to do that. Like, why do I want to be uncomfortable? Right? Comfort is the kiss of death. And bottom line is, now I know I have this higher level of discernment that, to be real, I'm in an excellent game. So if people aren't interested, I'll encourage you. I'll be like, right on, yeah. And I'll give you some tools, tips, and strategies, but I am not going to pour into you unless you're willing to move into that place of discomfort. I'm not the coach for you as a high performance coach if you're not prepared to be uncomfortable, because I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to love you through it. But my job is to ask you questions and to push you in places that you have to meet that dark side. We have to, as human beings. That is the work of an evolved human being, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Actually, I love that because it's one of those things. And I always tell people, I would not want to go through what you go through with the weight cutting you guys do. Okay. Because I have to get on a scale a certain weight one day, and the next day I can be 20 pounds heavier. Okay. You guys actually have to get on stage and look good. Okay. Which I tell people all the time, like, people being a fighter there's physical toughness. That's getting in the cage and fighting. Okay. I've had guys that broke during the weight cut, had no problem getting in the cage. But when they got down to that last 2 or 3 pounds, they broke. And I always tell people that's mental toughness.
Totally.
Like one time I walk around right now about 215, and I had gotten up to about 230 because I was doing a lot of pro shows at ultra heavyweight. So I wanted to get bigger. It was too much muscle to carry. So I had decided I was going to go back down. So what happened is I get a call. I had just competed at 230. I got a call to compete. It was a Wednesday. I got a call to compete on Friday night, and the weigh-ins were Thursday, and I had to make 205. And I made 205.
Anyone listening, you have no freaking idea how hard that is.
Well,
honestly, I have to lose 4 pounds in like 2.5 weeks, and I'm going out of my mind.
Yeah, but you got on stage. You actually have to look good.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I can get on a scale looking like an AIDS victim. Okay, as long as I rehydrate tomorrow, I'm fine. Okay, so it's like a different thing. But I will be honest with you. I was standing on a scale, and the guy that was doing the weigh-ins looked at me and said, "Are you doing it on purpose?" My abs were dancing. They were cramping so bad I could barely stand up. Every time I hit the brake pedal on my car, my whole body would pitch forward and my stomach would cramp. And, it was kind of funny, but the next day I was back to 228 and I felt great. And I like to tell people all the time, it's like, your comfort zone is going to kill you. Growth is outside the comfort zone. And we all have a tendency to do it. We build walls around ourselves where we're comfortable here. Look, I'm a big believer that if there's something that frightens you or something that scares you, give it a try. It's kind of like, I have an excellent example of a woman. It took her, got to be about 3 years in Vegas to come by for a class. She would reach out every couple months for a couple years. Okay. Then all of a sudden, right after New Year, last year, she came in. And it was kind of funny. I had to get one of my assistant coaches to get on the mat with her because she was going to watch. So I said, why don't you just take the class? I had Jay work with her all night long. Okay. She is addicted. Okay. When I left Vegas, she was my most consistent student. She found something so far outside her comfort zone that she had no idea was already inside her.
Mm.
And that's what I tell people. If you try to do things outside your comfort zone, you may find new passions that you never even realized you had.
Mm. I think it's essential to do that. I think you're always going to find that. Well, let me ask you a question. I ask this question to my the clients, and if I'm doing a speaking event, I also often ask this. But Phil, what percentage of your potential that you were gifted in this world do you feel as though you've tapped into from 1 to 100?
Well, I'm a firm believer in that. Mastery, 100%, things like that are false. Okay. If you think you've tapped into 100% of your potential, if you think you've mastered something, you've already lost. Okay. Because you're not striving to continue to get better.
Hmm.
Okay. I believe I have, in many ways, exceeded my personal expectations
Hmm.
for
I'm
how
talking about
much
the
of my.
gift that God gave you. That obviously you have, but if you had to give a percentage on what of your potential that you were given as gifts, what percentage of that would be? Would that be 1 to 100?
This is going to sound weird. It's going to be an 62%.
It's freaking awesome. I love it when people are like 61.47. There's a
Yeah,
certain
because
type of
I
person. I love that. And do you know the average when I get a new client, the average is between 40 and 60%. Between this morning and yesterday, I had one person that was 18 and one that was 21. These people are killing their careers. So
right.
yeah. So when you hear that number and you're like, yeah, I'm at 62%, what's it going to take for you? Or what would you tell someone to how do we tap into that unused potential? And we're talking to people, maybe, Phil, let's be honest, not everyone is greedy as you or me.
I would.
So what do we have for encouragement for those people that listen to this and go, yeah, 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 but that could never be me? Because they're out there.
Okay, I would say don't worry about the number itself.
Mm.
Okay, I would say, and this really helped me a lot, focus on being in the individual moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're working 100% work, don't go on Facebook, don't go on Instagram, don't play silly games. If you're training, be 100% in training. Okay, always be in the moment because it's the only moment you have. Okay, yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not here yet. So if you focus on what you're doing now, you're going to maximize most of your time. And I'm a big fan of that concept because too many people are half in one place, half in another. I think that is one of the big things. And the other big thing is why did you start it in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you started working out, why did you start working out? Okay, you're already halfway to the journey. If you stop now, you already failed. I hear a lot of people say they never competed in something. Okay, and some of them just they're not competition oriented, which I can understand, and that's very cool. Okay, but if you're not competing because you're scared of something, how will I do? Okay, if you're afraid to lose, if you're afraid to make a fool out of yourself, run and do some competition. I don't care whether it's competitive checkers. Okay, just go and do something that will make you challenge that fear. Okay, it'll make you a better person. And one of the things I love is I approach all aspects of my life as I'm about to compete in something. Okay. Now, listen, as an athlete, I've learned to lose. Unfortunately, it's going to happen if you fight good opponents. You're going to lose sometimes. Yeah, I just hate that concept, but it happens. Okay. I've learned to lose, but I don't like losing. Never embrace losing. Okay. Losing is not failure, losing is learning. Okay. What did I do wrong? What lessons did I learn here? Now, was I tired? It means I have to work on my condition. Was I just outclassed? I have to work on my technique. So the idea is you're constantly in this state of asking yourself questions. And I always tell people to live the rest of your life as in it's a feedback loop. Okay. You know, am I a good husband? Am I a good father? Am I a good at my business? And look at it from a competitive. In other words, what are your failings? Okay, constantly analyze and address your failings. Okay, because the idea, if you don't, you actually go backwards, not forwards. It's why I'm such a big one on the idea of like mastery. Okay, I don't believe there is mastery because the minute you think you've mastered somebody, you've stopped trying to improve. Okay, so I believe that I'm always working toward perfection, but perfection's impossible. It's an impossible concept, but it's the one concept we should all be working for. I want to be the perfect father. I want to be the perfect businessman. I want to be the perfect coach. I want to be the perfect athlete. Okay. And the idea is that drive gets you where you're going. And I'm not talking about making it a single minded, like you see these guys on TV that become obsessed with something. Okay. You also need to have that balance. You need to be able to switch from one quote unquote obsession, being the best father, to being the best athlete. Because, in other words, if you're the best athlete and you can't make a living and you don't have a relationship, being the best athlete has come at a very heavy cost.
Totally. I agree with that fully. So, could you describe for me your favorite failure?
My favorite failure. Okay. Okay. Athletically, it was actually the first time I did a pro show coming back after being sick. Okay. I was 54 years old. I took a pro show it was Fight to Win, and it was against their number one ranked 205-pound guy. First of all, I was kind of surprised at 54. They put me against their number one ranked guy. I ended up losing the match. But afterwards, the guy up to that point had never lost. He said I was his toughest match. He publicly said I was his toughest match, this, that, the other thing. But to make a long story short, it told me I can still hang on that level with the younger guys.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was a real eye opener for me because, like, I'm one of those people. I look at myself with, harsh glasses. I'm not like, in other words, like, I'm the guy that takes my shirt off, and even if you can see my abs, I'm overweight. Okay, so it's kind of like I'm a little bit hard on myself. So my natural question was coming back, am I kidding myself? Okay, listen, every once in a while somebody you're like, you're old. What are you doing? Oh, thanks for
Mhm.
reminding me. But it kind of like I'm going to do it as long as I can do it, and as long as I feel I'm not embarrassing myself.
That's so good. And so, let's just say in that, when we're thinking about that gap, so what was your self talk leading out of that? Because I think there is a science and a system to assessment and being able to release and let go of the failure. But what would you say that process is? Because I think this is something that's actually not taught.
Okay,
We don't
I
teach, we don't, we're like, oh no, let's just build up our self-esteem. We all get trophies. And I believe that that's been extreme disservice to generation of people. What
participation
is the
awards.
process for you as far as self-talk?
Okay, now I have a tendency I embrace all things. Okay, first of all, if I'm feeling something, I'm not going to avoid it. Like if I was feeling nervous, I'm going to embrace the nerves and let them run through me because if I fight it, it's going to wear me down.
Do you acknowledge the emotional experience?
Right.
Good.
Fortunately
Okay.
for me with fighting, okay, now I had an odd career. My first loss was devastating.
Looking for a motivational and inspirational speaker to host your next event? Reach out to me at kate-mckay.com.
I had fought from 15 to 20, 26 and never lost. I
Mm.
broke my neck. I came back 10 years later. I got medical clearance to fight again, and I lost my first fight. I came back too high on the food chain and too overconfident because, in other words, my attitude was the sun sets, the sun rises, water's wet, Phil wins fights. Okay. In other words, there was no idea that a loss could actually happen.
Mm.
Okay. And when I lost, it was really tough to deal with it. It was tough to get through the first loss.
Mm.
And then it was one of those things that, especially having a fighter's mindset. No, a fighter's mindset, if you're a real fighter, I'm not talking about, I say there's athletes who fight, okay, and it's the sport they chose, but they don't actually really like fighting.
Mm.
Okay,
Really? Why would they do it? What are they trying to prove? Are they trying to prove it to
I don't think they're trying to
somebody?
prove something. They enjoy the
Oh,
sport, but they're not. Between you and I am still, I've learned to control it, but I'm still the guy that the minute you get loud at me, a switch goes on. It's like, I'm ready to go. Okay. I'm not, I'm like fighters fight. That's our natural reaction. And I'm classifying myself as a fighter because that's like fighters have a tendency to believe no matter how badly they're getting beaten down, one punch, one submission, you can be kicking my ass for 14 minutes and 40 seconds. But if I get you in a choke or a heel hook, I'm winning.
Mm.
Okay, so part of it's that fighter's mindset that when I'm getting ready, my self-talk is more now at this stage. It's a lot different because, like I always tell people, age brings perspective.
Mm.
Okay, and when I was younger, I had all the stupidity I say that goes along with youth. Okay, I'm gonna be the baddest man on the planet. Blah 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 blah. Like all of that stupid stuff. Okay, then when I came back the first time, I came back to prove the doctors wrong, to prove I could do it. This
Mm.
time I came back. I got the clean bill of health with the cancer. I decided to come back. I started training again. I decided, why am I not doing all the things I love, like water skiing, windsurfing, competing? Okay, so it became one of those things where it's kind of like, hell, I'll give it a try, see if I still love it. I love it. Okay, so I was going to keep doing it. But now my mantra is a little bit different. It's almost like, I just go have fun. Like I don't experience nerves.
Mm.
Okay, it's just kind of like, I walk out there sometimes and I can remember walking out. I did Submission Underground and it's a really big pro show and it's in the cage. It was in the Roseland Theater in Portland. And I love that venue because they have seats overlooking the cage, and it was just a crazy venue. And I remember standing there, and I was 54, and I remember standing there, the crowd's going nuts because like an old guy got in the ring, and it was kind of funny because I'm standing there saying, "Man, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm out here doing this
Mm.
at 54 years old, and I'm supposed to be dead."
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, it's completely different. Every time I walk out there, I give the giant middle finger to death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Totally.
For me, it's like, I won. Whatever happens
Exactly.
on the mat, I already won.
Mm. That's such beautiful perspective. So you've gone through a lot of hardship. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it, but obviously, you had mental illness and addictions in your family and yourself, and that also obviously breaking your neck, these life changing injuries, and also cancer. People are going to look at you and say you're just an uncommon man. Be amongst common people. Like I could never be you. You're not relatable, Phil. What would you say to them?
Listen, I'm not uncommon. Like I tell my guys, okay. I get a 23-year-old laying on the mat complaining about being old. I'm like, what the hell are you talking? Coach, you don't count. You're not human. Okay. And I get all these comments, but I'm not a great athlete. I was a good football player. I was a good basketball player because by that point, I was always in shape. And basically, I was a skinny kid. I was 147 pounds. I was hard as a coffin nail. Okay. In other words, it was like I was just bone tough. My greatest quality is I always say it's too stupid. I'm too stupid. Okay. I'm too stupid to listen to the people that tell me I can't. Okay. You can't compete at 60. Hold my beer and watch. Okay, you can't without a college education, you can't be a successful businessman. Watch me, I will. Okay, without in other words, I've heard more can'ts in my life. You can't come back from a broken neck. You'll never do anything physical again. Okay, I've heard it more times than I can count. Go to a doctor and say you'll never be able to compete with that shoulder. Watch me. Okay, I'm gonna do my life, my terms. Okay, I got to be honest with you. It's your life. Okay. And one thing you'll really realize, okay, if you're sitting in a parking lot one day, okay, trying to figure out how to tell the people around you you're going to die, and you realize mortality is a number. Somebody says 6 to 8 months. Okay. So mortality is now a number. You're looking at it. Okay. The only thing you have. Now, I've had nice cars, nice houses. I've had it all. Okay. The only thing you have, your family, your memories, and the lives you impact. Those are the only things. Once you're in the ground, nothing else was here. Okay, so I basically dedicate my life now to making memories, being there for my family. We built a big family compound in Virginia. Okay, and impacting lives, helping students, helping people. One of the reasons I'm on here today is I'm not looking like a lot of people go on podcasts to plug things. I'm coming on to share that if I can do this, a kid who grew up broke in the Bronx, okay, being raised by somebody who wasn't their parent, okay, if I can do this, if I can get ahead, I never graduated from high school. I got thrown out. I was a discipline problem, all of those things. But I've succeeded in the business world. Okay, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm dyslexic. I have problems with reading and I'm in the finance business.
Mm.
Okay. So you can overcome. It's just a matter of, did you really want it? Okay. And I've seen this a million times in my life. Guys that were talented who wanted to be fighters right up until they find out what it takes to be a fighter. Okay. Think to yourself, find things in life. Okay. Now you do the fitness competition. Did you go into the gym planning on doing a fitness competition?
Yeah, no.
Right. It
Mm.
evolved. It evolved from walking in the front door at the gym, starting to
Mm.
work out, starting to eat right, starting to
Well,
feel
I'm
better
like
about
you,
yourself.
like, because we're like the similar age. So it's like, I don't think people understand. There's a big piece of it for me, especially being a woman, is that when I started working out in the 80s, in the early 80s, women weren't in gyms underneath the squat rack. They weren't
No,
bench pressing. I remember going to a gym that was like this Russian lady owned it. And I was like doing V sit-ups, like on different, like on the, a different way, whatever. And she goes, "You can't do those that way here. I'm in charge of how you exercise." And I was just like, "Oh my God," and I was like, "This is crazy." So it wasn't like I went to the gym and I was accepted because there was so much judgment around women who lifted weights. It was like, you were stupid, you were vain, and why are you doing that? You're just so full of yourself. They didn't understand that it was the place where I was the most uncomfortable, and it's the place that was my home.
exactly. Like, how do I phrase it? I have a woman that just finished interning, and she actually came in to find a place for her niece to train. Her niece was going to college and she wanted to learn self defense. She's in training all the time. And it's like she was saying that she shouldn't say this, but she's a psychiatrist. She feels like she should send all her patients to training, okay? Because it really does, that sense of challenging yourself all the time actually almost gives you a sense of home. It
Mm.
also, like, I'll be honest with you, I've always said to people, I have two types of friends: real world friends and training friends. And the training friends have always been there for me. The
Mhm.
real world friends, like whenever I need help, they seem to blow me off. But the training friends, because we see each other challenged every day, we see each other facing our demons, we see each other at our best and our worst. So we form a bond. But what I was getting at is sometimes you take one step, you take a plunge inside a gym, whether it's a fight gym, a fitness gym, and you discover a whole new facet of yourself that you never even knew existed. Like when you went into that gym, I'm sure you didn't picture yourself up on stage, but yet you're there. So the people listening at home, none of us really started where we ended up. Where we ended up happened as we were living our lives and making decisions. Every decision you make today is going to dictate who you are tomorrow. So that, if you're somebody that says that, okay, that's not achievable, how do you know? You never tried it.
Mm, mm. Well, it's like that. It's a weird transition, and I think that it's you've got to lean into the places that are uncomfortable, and it can be small, but you'll know that there's going to be something in you that ignites that you're going to be like, I like that. I'm going to keep doing it. But if you don't tap into that feeling, if you don't even like tap in, okay, you're growing or you're dying, right? You're growing or you're dying. There's no in between. Comfort is you're dying, people. You are
Well,
actually dying. Tissues are shrinking, your brain is shrinking, your length of your life is shrinking. Everything is atrophying, including your friggin' spirit.
it's kind of funny that you bring that up. Like I see it, like, it just comes up in conversations all the time. Like, body wise. Okay. People all the time, they say, yeah, but you paid a price with a lot of injuries. I'm 60 years old. I have guys coming in for the first time at 38 that have more physical ailments than me,
Mm.
and I haven't done anything since high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's kind of like, my issue is mileage. Okay. But the idea is that mileage has built a strength
Yeah.
that you don't get without those hard miles.
Years and years of it.
Exactly. And
It's like,
it's all
how when you see people that are like, you're like, oh, those people that's old muscle or that's new muscle. Like that's literally a conversation we have in the gym. And I know,
yep.
Phil, you know this, right? Because you can see someone who's like, yeah, that's new muscle. It's a different thing when it's old muscle. I'm your age. So it's like when you go in and you're like, people are like, God, Katie, like, how do you look like you do at your age? I'm like, you know how long I've been grinding? First time I ever got under a bench, I was 21. You can choose to
Embrace.
grind. You can
I
grind.
I tell people, embrace the grind, embrace the suck. And I know this isn't very popular nowadays. Life ain't fair. Never was, never supposed to be, never will be. Okay, when you look at birth, in other words, people are born every day. Some of them, and this is going to be something people don't like to hear. Some people are ugly. Some people are pretty. Some people are as dumb as a stump. Other people are smart. Hell, genetics isn't fair. What makes you think anything else in life is fair? So the idea is your job is to maximize whatever gifts you got. Okay. And if you're not trying to maximize those gifts, why are you alive? In other words, when you're sitting there watching Netflix at night, is that all there is to life?
Mm-hmm.
Mindless entertainment? Or would you rather be doing something? Would you rather be playing football in the backyard with your kid? In other words, there are things you can do. Don't watch life go by. Live it. It's your life. Okay. Like I always tell people ask me questions and I go, I'm always like, it's my life. I don't care what you say. And I'm living and dying on my terms, not somebody else's preconceived notion of what's possible.
No, that's unbelievable true. But it's being able to embrace that sense of autonomy that, and I think that life, when you are tested in certain ways, like my son 5 years ago committed suicide.
Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So that put me in a thank you. But that put me in a place of such darkness that I was like, where's the light here? Right. So if I knew that in this life that I came here to make a difference, and if my meaning up until that point was I birthed a friggin' divine angel and then I was able to release him, what's more noble than that? So I had to
Right.
come up with a whole new meaning, which was I'm representing all the warriors to help them give language to who they are so they can embrace that aspect of themselves instead of detaching from the fire. We need to tap into the fire. And sometimes that's tap into the rage. What they say, and I'm sure you resonate with this, is that, I read this article that was like, the way you tap in with your high schooler is ask them, what pisses you off? That's the way you're going to tap into someone's passion. Because if you skirt around where anger and rage and fear and jealousy and longing exist in your soul, you are skipping out. You are skipping out. So I just want to call out any people who are listening. It's not that things have to be easy. Don't expect easy. It's going to be hard. And you're going to love it, man. Because the people you meet on the journey, it's everything. The people that leave because they can't take you, we got to let them go. We have
That
models of greatness before us, and let's follow it, Phil. You being one of them. I'm so psyched to be partnered with you on this journey.
my hat's off to you because I can't, that's the type of mental toughness that I can't even comprehend. Going on after losing a child. My hat's off to you. Now I'm not sure I could bounce back from that.
Mm. And everyone, right? So that's what I'm saying, right? It's a matter of degree. But that was my test. My brother was murdered at 22, and my son took his own life at 22. My mom was 54. How old was I? Yeah, I was 54. So we get tested in this life, and we are karmically are tested to see how we are going to handle that fight. And I said, my motto in life is to live powerfully with courage and enthusiasm. And you better believe, Phil, that I was going to figure out a way to do grief just friggin' like that. I enthusiastically moved through grief. I didn't miss a friggin' thing. I rolled it like I was on a mat.
That's good. I like that.
True that.
It's true.
I just in conclusion, I'm sorry, we're going to definitely do part 2 on this one, but what would, if you had a billboard, what would you want people to know? If you had a billboard in Times Square or something like that, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know I was here. I did it. It's possible. Learn from me and do it yourself. It's kind of like I'm a big believer is anything is possible if you want it bad enough and are willing to pay the toll. In other words, like I always joke around, life is like a poker game. There's table stakes. Okay, if you decide you want to fight, table stakes, you're getting punched in the face and choked.
Exactly.
Okay, if you want a successful life, Okay, you're going to have to sacrifice comfort. If you want to be in shape, you're going to have to make sacrifices and work out and eat better. Okay, life is sacrifice. Okay, you sacrifice what you want now for what you truly want. Okay, right now, let's say you're getting ready for a competition. Right now, you want a Hershey bar, but you tell yourself, I can't have a Hershey bar until after I compete because your goal of looking good on stage was more important to you than that momentary satisfaction of a Hershey bar.
Well, I have to, and I would even say yes. And also knowing that I'm like, I'm hungry, and getting bitchy about it is being like, I'm friggin' hungry. And I friggin' love the hunger. So I have to let the hunger inform me of what I'm doing. And it's just like any great spiritual leader, Dalai Lama, Jesus. You can look at any leader, even, like Martin Luther King. You look at that, they knew they were going to die. They knew
Right.
that their sacrifice and their leaning in was for higher purpose. Embrace your sacred. Embrace that whatever is your discomfort is the opening to your sacredness. Tap in.
It's amazing because so many people avoid discomfort like the plague, and it's where it would actually grow. It's like when
Exactly.
people when I talk to people about pain, like people always ask me, with your shoulder, with your knee, you're still out there. They see me limp on the mat and compete, and like I try to tell people, I made friends with pain a long
Mm,
time ago. Okay, pain tells me when I've overdone. Pain tells me when I'm injured. Pain is
mm,
just an impulse like anything else.
exactly.
Okay, you can choose to fall apart from it, or you can choose to use it as a tool like any other tool.
Yeah, totally. Well, Phil, we're definitely, as I said, going to do part two. I will share your information on where people can find you in the show notes. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for the light and the determination and the grit and your willingness to share with the world. You are an amazing person, and I'll call you out and say that you actually are uncommon, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your uncommonness. So thank you so much for sharing this time.
Thank you
I'm
so much for
grateful.
having me. I really appreciate it. I had a good time talking. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. And
Okay.
thank you to all of you viewers and listeners of Master Your Life with Kate McKay. I'm so grateful that you shared with us. And just in parting, embrace the grit, embrace the places of uncomfortable. You have greatness within you. Lean in, and reach out to people who can support you along the way. Take good care.
Looking for an inspirational speaker at your next event? Please reach out to us at kate-mckay.com and to book Kate at your next event.